Hey guys, welcome back. Unpopular opinions in Pokemon number 30. We got a short one today. There was lots of arguments throughout these 10 pages that we're going through. So we're not going to include all of that. Maybe I'll speak on it a little bit as we go through these. But remember, Sakari, the creator of this thread, check him out. YouTube, link in the description. Still going. This thread never dies. It's always, not always, but it's usually on the front page of efour. If you guys want to include yourself in one of these videos, there's a very good chance that if you sign up for efour, comment on the thread, put something decent in there, get a nice juicy unpopular opinion, you'll probably end up in one of the videos here. Try to pick the best or spiciest for the thumbnail. So if you guys disagree with that and think there's something more, I guess, unpopular than the one that I showcase, then feel free to let me know down below. Let's start off here with BK 2021. And also, some of these are not really unpopular opinions, but if there's important information or something that I think is valuable to you guys, I will make sure to include it regardless. They say, not sure why everyone thinks this is sustainable. The majority of consumers are collectors, not players, and it's become impossible to complete sets. I agree to an extent. I don't think it's impossible. I think to complete every set and to complete all of the secrets, Rainbow, Hyper, Dogger, Supremes, and reverses, yes, very, very difficult to do so. Even if you're buying singles, even if you're trading, they are a burden. Now, does this mean they're impossible? No, definitely not. Should you be trying to do this on day one when the set comes out? Definitely not. If your intention is to save money, as I've mentioned many times on the channel, usually the cheapest cards will ever be is when they're a generation or two old. So currently your like XY and Sun and Moon stuff is probably as cheap as it's ever going to be. And then slowly over time, it will probably increase in value. But buying something, especially when it's in standard, especially when there's playable cards there, especially when it's the new hot thing, you're in for a bad time in terms of pricing because those are all going to drop. Either, playable stuff, if it's very playable and very expensive for that reason, like an Arceus or a Tapu Lele or anything like that, you're going to see promos being issued or reprints of some kind. Not necessarily reprints of the same set, sometimes reprints of the same set, but usually they'll include another version of that trainer or Pokemon in a promo set in order to bring the price down for players. So, also I guess important if you're playing the game, you don't need to buy the crazy stuff on day one, unless you're playing competitively and you absolutely need it, then by all means do it. So even if we look at Arceus V-Star when it first came out, it was like $50, which is crazy. It's not expensive because it's a popular Pokemon. Yes, Arceus is the Pokemon god, but at the same time, it's so expensive because it's playable, and it's not going to retain that value. If it's not something, especially if you have duplicates, players are probably looking to pick those up. So it's a little bit of, if you're opening Modern, you should definitely have some awareness of playability and the TCG itself if you're trying to maximize your buck. Because opening packs in general is not a good idea in terms of financial value. It is fun, and usually I would suggest if you're going to do it to some extent, up to you how far you bring that. But eventually you're just going to end up getting duplicates. You're going to have to sell those, etc., etc. So open a little bit maybe, and if you really want to complete the set, you can either trade or buy the singles if you're looking to save money, especially with these large sets. Another option is just skip some of the sets. So if there's certain sets that you like the most and you want to complete sets rather than just a bunch of random cards or your favorite cards, then by all means do that. So if you like Brilliant Stars, but let's say you don't like Chilling Reign, then don't collect Chilling Reign, just collect Brilliant Stars. Me on the other hand, I'd rather collect them all. It is difficult, but also at the same time, usually I'm not going to look to complete a set right away. I've made exceptions with some modern stuff, some vintage stuff where I just finish off the set, but the large majority of my sets are incomplete. I have a lot of cards from those sets, but I'm usually looking for deals before finishing those off. And a large majority of that is also time consuming. Reverses, the longer a set's out, the harder it is to find mint reverses. So those are going to be a little bit of a struggle with the vintage stuff. But back into this here. Though the main issue was it falling out of popularity anyway. Oh, wait. Back then, I only collected from base through Neo Rev, where it was feasible to complete, and wasn't interested in E-Series massive sets, not holo repeat rares, etc. Though the main issue was it falling out of popularity anyway. So here, yeah, so it's not like a new thing where it's difficult to open a full set. Your E-Series stuff, your Expedition, I think anything after Expedition, even your Legendary Collection, to open a complete set, to have all the reverses, very difficult to do so, versus, base set, base Rocket, Fossil, and even your gym sets, not so bad. You can open a couple boxes and have the majority of it, open a few boxes and probably almost guaranteed to have the full set. But when you get into Expedition, I can't imagine. I don't know how many actual boxes you'd have to open, but that's where trading comes in. That's where buying singles comes in. At a certain point, you're going to have to do that regardless. And I would kind of argue that anything after like Legendary Collection, Expedition, you'd have to do that anyway. It seems like there's this weird thing where people are allergic to trading and or buying singles. You don't have to open the whole set. It's ridiculous, and it's even more ridiculous now with these large sets, but it's been, for a very long time, ridiculous to try and open an entire set. Now you need to be poke rev to attempt to complete a set by pulling, and even then you won't be able to without spending an absurd amount of money every few months. So, sorry to tell you, but this was still the same thing. Even Sun and Moon, you shouldn't be buying booster boxes until you have the whole set. There's certain cards that are just hard to pull. And there's a certain point where you're getting nothing but duplicates and trying to get that one card. You're going to be opening full boxes and not getting anything that you need, because the large majority of the cards that you'll be missing are the ones that are hard to pull. Yes, you could get them eventually, but yeah, you could trade. Yes, you should, or buy singles. But after buying how many boxes? No, you stop buying boxes. Certain sets, maybe 1 or 2 booster boxes is fine. I open way more than that, but I shouldn't. Part of it is just for content on the channel. So chill. You got to chill. You don't need to open. You don't need to mass open in order to complete a set. You need to buy singles. Or if you're looking just one card out of the set, buy it as a single. You don't need to pull it. But if you do like opening packs, then I suggest you do so. Then buy singles. Finish off your set if you want to finish off the set. Who really wants your Vs, VMAXs, and normal full arts, which are almost as worthless as holos and rares? How many people really want gold items? So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. All they did was shift the rarity from like your holos are now your harder to pull stuff. So like your full arts and rainbows and alternate arts. That's kind of all it comes down to. Power shift, rarity shift. For now, whilst we're still in the panty, and the hype hasn't entirely died down altogether with the supply chain issues, it may seem sustainable, but all the new/returning collectors will realize the scam quite quickly. If every year has 4 250 card sets, of which 60% of the cards are in the rare slot, it's not possible to keep up, and all the while Pokemon is encouraging you not to want to collect the full sets by devaluing 90% of all the cards. I mean, they're going to lose value regardless, because there's a certain amount of that value which is associated with it being the new shiny thing. That's how it works. Whenever people all put value into the same thing when something's new, you notice everyone wants something on day one. You had people complaining that they couldn't get product But usually it was they couldn't get product on day one. When the second wave comes around, when these reprints came around, who wants it now? I don't see anyone like losing their crap anymore. The same people that were complaining that they couldn't get this product at MSRP now don't want it. That's just how it works. People don't want it unless it's the new cool thing. Seems like terrible behavior / impression to reinforce in the long run. We'll see if they kill off rainbow rares with brilliant stars or during Gen 9, or whether they grow further out of touch and add even more variations. So yeah, the amount of variations do need to chill. You got to remember that kids and people that are new to the hobby, most of them don't care which of these cards that they pull. If they pull a rainbow, if they pull a secret rare, they're going to be excited. It doesn't necessarily have to be your chase card that they're after. They're just excited. If they open Evolving Skies and they get a hyper rare, I don't even know, Umbreon, great, they're happy. If they don't get the alt art, are they going to be heartbroken? No, probably not. But if they did get it, yeah, they'd probably be excited. The large majority, I think even as kids, I don't remember many of us ever really wanting to collect the full sets. That's what I do now, and that's what I love. But we weren't really stuck on it. We didn't open enough packs to like complete the entire sets, which was very easy back then. But that wasn't our goal, and it never became our goal. So I think there's different ways to enjoy the hobby. You don't necessarily have to have a complete set. You don't necessarily have to have the exact cards that you want. You can trade for those. What they're doing is creating a lot of chase, and otherwise people, like, who's gonna open your higher end or your adults, which is also who they're catering towards. If you complete the set with one booster box, they're only going to buy one booster box. There's like no real point to it. There's no chase. But at the same time, there's other options in terms of affordability. Just buy the singles. And if the singles are too much and you don't want to spend that much, then wait until the next gen or the next gen and then come back and buy the Sword and Shield singles, because they'll probably be cheaper then, because everyone's going to forget about them until years and years from now. I'm sure there'll be some kind of throwback and cool nostalgia towards them. Collector says, I think people underestimate the power of pulling the card you want as opposed to clearing out someone's inventory on TCG Player, and how much the continued success of the hobby depends on the former being somewhat accessible instead of completely impossible. Yeah, well, I don't know if this is necessarily the case. Us as kids, I mean, everyone wanted the Charizard Holo. Not very many kids had it. But is that like, did we just like rage quit Pokemon? I mean, everyone kind of got too old for it at some point, or bored of it, or whatever. I'm sure there's many reasons why people get out as a kid. Typically, you move on to other things, you lose interest, and then end up coming back to it. But me not pulling the Charizard, the base set Charizard, didn't like ruin the hobby for me. It wasn't the only thing that I needed, or any sort of real in-depth reason. It didn't matter. In the end, it didn't matter. We were excited to get a couple Holos. We were excited to open a pack in general. The fact that we didn't get one specific card that we wanted, that wasn't make or break. I think people kind of lose sight of that or don't completely understand that. But that's just it. And even then, if there's some card that for some reason you're dying to have, there's a good chance that you can either trade for it or purchase it. It all gets very inexpensive. Even the chase stuff. Well, the Burning Shadows Charizard, I think, was $100 at one point in time. That's like a 1 in 600 packs. I think it's something like that. How much would you have to spend on 600 packs? Or, if it's a card that you really want, wait for it to go down in price, or buy it at a price that you want, or that you're comfortable with, I think anyone has the ability to save up $100. Especially if they're opening packs trying to get specific cards. If you just set that aside, or if you sell off your duplicates or whatever you have to do, it's very, very achievable. You might not be able to get it when it's brand spanking new. You might not be able to get a PSA 10, but again, that's when you're getting into like conditions that you're just making it more difficult for yourself. If it's truly just the card that you want, then they're all very attainable. If it's an English set card, there's nothing that is out of anyone's reach. Muck says, pure set collecting is boring anyway. Winky face. Get out of here, Muck. Lavender Gengar says, my main problem with newer sets is that to complete them, not only do you need regular ultra rares, full arts, and alt arts, but you also need rainbows. It's like almost every ultra rare has to have 4 versions. Yeah, I think there's too many versions, and I definitely like to see them kind of chop something out of there. There's just a little bit too much chase on the high end, and the set sizes they're a little wild. Some of them anyway. But Fusion Strike was ridiculous. But yeah, I think the rainbows can be retired. They don't need to jam up every set. I'd like to see more of a random selection of Pokemon throughout the generations. I get that the latest generation is going to get the most attention, but also I'd like to see a lot of those Pokemon that have been neglected and get some like powerful cards would be cool to see. 90s Mayo says regular holo cards would be more exciting to pull if the holo patterns were more interesting. XY and Sun and Moon had the most generic, boring holos in the series. Sword and Shield is a step up for at least trying something different this time. I don't know if you realize this, but Black and White was the same thing. It's just rotated 90 degrees. But really, we need a return of the Cosmo foils in regular sets. So there's this like weird thing where everyone's obsessed with the Cosmos foils. It's gonna have swirly whirlies. It's gotta be. We need the retro. We need WotC foils. They're never going back to WotC foils. Holos are never going to be the chase cards, outside of like some promos or something like that. It's just not going to happen. We have new, exciting cards that have art slopped all over them. Crazy alternate arts are another thing. But even before that, when full arts were the chase, when hyper rares were the chase, your gold cards, everything else, the rarest cards and the most valuable cards, at least in terms of English sets, are not going to be holos. So I don't know. Like, I don't think many people are really appreciating the holos to begin with, or collecting them, unless they're collecting sets. So I don't know, where this like everyone is obsessed with the holo pattern. I guess it's the same thing with like the base 2. People like base 2 because of the holo pattern on it. Again, it's not something that I really notice or care about. More so that certain areas are holo and non-holo to make the card and the art work best with the holo foil itself. Niche says, if you grade with PSA because you like the way they look, or because you want to get the most out of your money, or because you want to complete a PSA set, that's fine and good. If you grade with PSA because it's easier to get 10s, you are a clown and I will laugh at you. So I don't know if this is supposed to be like a jab, like a CGC promotion. Or maybe like Beckett. We're talking black. If you're not grading with PSA instead of grading with BGS to try for black labels, then you're a clown. I don't know. Maybe trolling. Candle says there is a ton of love for promo trainers, and rightly so. But holo trainer cards are underappreciated. Mostly thinking vintage here. I don't know much about modern full art trainers, etc. So, I don't know if he's talking about the gym holos, holo trainers. maybe, in terms of like vintage holo trainers. And yeah, I don't know if there's that much love for them. People seem to forget them. The gym's heroes, gym challenge trainers. If that's what he's promo. Oh no, maybe the promo. I have no idea what the promo trainers, but the holo set trainers are underappreciated. I don't know. You guys let me know if you know, because I don't know. Squirtle 1000. I don't mind the reverse rares. Not the reverse rares. The rainbow rares. I know kids love the rainbow rares. It's exciting. It's flashy. You know when you pull it immediately, like, oh man, rainbow. But I think it's overstayed its welcome. To my knowledge, every rainbow rare also has a normal list rare variant with the artist's original non-rainbow illustration. The rainbow rares then are really just a uniform, consistent way of recasting these illustrations into a standard color theme that is easily associated with higher rarity. If the Pokemon and trainers featured in rainbow rares were unobtainable in regular form, then yes, I would not like them either. Since we have both, I don't see the harm. It's just more chase that doesn't necessarily need to be there, in my opinion. When they were like the top pull, I get that, but now where we have alternate arts, I think they can be phased out. If the argument is that top tier chase cards should be unique, not just recolored, well, we do have those too, alternate arts. I suppose you could argue that we ought to have more of those and less rainbows, but I think we have the right balance currently. I think now where we're getting more alternate arts per set, I think it makes a lot more sense to like just scrap the rainbows altogether. But yeah, like, I guess it kind of makes sense to have the rainbow hits in your stuff. Like, how many battle styles had 2 alternate arts? So maybe where you have like 2 alternate arts in a set, maybe you have rainbows too. But now where we're increasing the number of alternate arts, maybe we can just like scrap the rainbows. Maybe they'll go to the end of Sword and Shield. Who really knows? I guess we'll find out. Also, recall how the rarity tiers were handled in some early WotC sets. For example, in Jungle, Fossil, and Rocket, we had non-holo variants of every holo. I also don't like that. I always thought that was boring and unimaginative. I agree. Same with like the reprint sets, but those were, I guess, more for players than they were for collectors. I don't think rainbow rares in modern sets are any less lazy than that WotC approach. I'm not advocating for continued laziness, just acknowledging that the Pokemon Company isn't doing anything lazier with the rainbow rares. Very true, and there's definitely people that like them. I think a lot of the like high-end collectors aren't a fan, but as a kid, the rainbow rare doesn't happen very often, and it's exciting. Same with like a full gold card. I don't know. I would imagine that alternate arts as a kid, you're probably pretty excited, but I feel like some of them, you like a kid might not even realize that it's an alternate art. They might just think it's like a full art or something. There's clear differences, but maybe as a kid, where you're just looking and immediately you see rainbow, you think, oh yes, I hit something awesome. This doesn't happen all the time. And that's the thing too. Just like as a kid, you're probably just excited to pull one hyper rare or rainbow rare and to have that in your binder and show off kind of thing. So Arita Fan says reverse holos are just participation trophies. Yeah, I guess it takes a lot of participation trophies to complete a set, which is interesting, and maybe not so much a participation trophy at that point in time. Lavender Gengar says E-Series border is the best bossed border. I like the E Series border. I hope they do something again that's really wild like that. Not necessarily exactly like E Series, but something very different. They've been pretty tame recently, in recent years. Yellow, keep the yellow, but something different. I want to see E Series 2 with something similar to the Animal Crossing amiibo cards. Incorporate that into maybe the new games would be top tier. I've mentioned that a few times. Pokemon, do it. Amiibo, Pokemon cards that we can incorporate or use with the new games when they come out. Ash says grading companies should not grade modern cards from mass-produced products in the first couple of years of their release. Realistically, that will not happen, as that's the grading company's bread and butter, but one can dream. So this is weird, and there was a huge amount of this discussion where there's this weird entitlement to people that used to grade cards for like grading vintage cards and flipping them for money are upset because other people are grading a bunch of junk slabs. But at the same time, it's not anyone's right over anyone else to determine what can and can't be graded. If the grading companies are accepting all of it, it doesn't matter if it's your brand spanking new $20 card or a vintage $20 card. They should be treated the same. And that's the thing too. It's just like, there's a lot of there's a huge lack of patience, or there was at least, with the 2020 boom, both in grading and sealed product, everything in general. Everyone was just extremely entitled, and all it takes is just be patient, find something else to do, find something else to collect. You can grade cards later. If flip dipping graded cards was your thing, you're just going to have to adapt and deal with it for a little while until PSA can get opened back up. Effexbor says WotC era is the worst era of Pokemon cards. Probably, I wouldn't say it's the worst. In terms of artwork variety, it's definitely not the best, but all of it is a part of the Pokemon trading card game history. Obviously, I have the most nostalgia for the initial WotC sets as I grew up with them. But at the same time, I can recognize the fact that the artwork has only become better. Modern Pokemon right now, we are extremely lucky with the amount of artists and talent and effort that goes into each and every card. All right, Squirtle 1000. I think I included this one because it was a pretty good take, at least in my opinion. There's a lot of frustration about the junk cards being submitted and how they are preventing everyone else's cards from getting through the queue. I get the frustration, but I think it's helpful to realize that this is a one-off thing that likely won't happen again, even when PSA brings back cheap grading. Yes, it is. Same thing with people not being able to buy product from Walmart shelves. Temporary issue. Tried to tell everyone that. Don't FOMO. It's okay. If you're afraid that you couldn't get any of it, almost all of it is available now. Same thing with grading. Just don't grade. If it's for your personal collection, just hold on to the cards. They're not any more protected in a PSA case. No matter what you want to think, they're still susceptible to moisture and UV light. Just put them, get them ready for grading, hold on to them. Grade them when it becomes cheaper, when it becomes available. If you're just flipping them, sorry, but your flip dipping is on hold. Deal with it. Same thing with modern. People that wanted to open modern, you just got to put it on hold. You just have to do it to a certain extent. Yes, where they have the increased prices and increased turnaround times, maybe only grade certain cards if you're really impatient, but it's going to cost you money. In 2020, everyone who submitted junk cards was tempted into doing so by looking at sales data. If a $10 card turns into a $100 when it is in a slab, why not grade it? That's kind of the idea. That's why everyone was doing it. That's why you see people making posts saying, want to buy slabs. This is how much money I have, and not specifically what cards they want to buy. I don't get it, but that's what they do. People just really want the slabs. They think it's immediately free tendy loony doony bucks. Why stop with one? Why not grade 20 copies of the card? The problem, of course, is that the price was a mirage. It was never going to hold. Yet the slabs couldn't get on the market fast enough to drive the prices back down to sane levels. Hence the massive submissions of cards that would have never been graded before. The flood that basically closed PSA earlier this year. So, yes, and that's also why we have LMNOP grading companies that are coming out. Year 3 and I don't know if there are any with 4 letters. 3 and 4 letter grading companies that just popped up because people wanted slabs. People were uneducated. They were new. Everyone was pumping the fact that, hey, slabs equals money. But now the backlog is going to flow in. Now these temporary grading companies are going to close or become so irrelevant that, you're going to recognize them even less than you do now. And it's not going to be worth the money that was spent submitting them. We're going to have junk slabs for days. We've already seen some of that where the card inside, the plastic on the outside that you spent $20 on even from some of these no-name grading companies is not going to add $20 worth of value. It's going to be the value of the raw card, or maybe even less sometimes, depending on how and where you sell it. Now these cards are finally getting returned, and sure enough, the market is correcting. Some of those cards, e.g. Evolutions, Reverses, PSA 9, are barely selling for break even after shipping, grading fees, eBay fees, etc. Yeah, that's the thing too. So when you're selling it, you got to take into consideration all these fees and your shipping and everything else. So are you really making any money? No, probably not. If you were paying increased prices, maybe even worse. There's going to be a lot of scenarios where the person could have sold the raw card for more than what they're going to get it back for. And yes, there's going to be some people abandoning their orders at the grading companies because the cards that they're getting back are not going to be even worth the grading fees. There's some serious garbage that was graded. Not garbage, but things that shouldn't have been graded. Junkiest of junk slabs. Cards that are worth way less than the grading fees and just never should have been submitted. But everyone was stonk dogging, and they were like, yes, we got to grade everything. It graded for life, and just didn't take into consideration the fact that it's not always free money by grading everything. That's not how it works. This process is slow and will continue well into 2022 as PSA continues to work through their backlog. It sure will. When PSA eventually brings back cheap grading, suppose in 2022 or 2023, guess which cards won't be submitted in bulk? The aforementioned junk. The market will strongly discourage it. Sure, grading might get cheap again, but the eBay sales data will be a pretty strong deterrent to submitting common modern. It sure will. Other than the fact that some people, they have a favorite Pokemon, maybe it's a common, but going in, they should realize, hey, I'm grading this with the intention of just having it in the slab versus actually trying to make money on it. A lot of this prior stuff mentioned was people trying to stonk out 69 style, and if they didn't get it back, now they're getting it back and it's worth nothing. Not worth nothing, but it's worth less than the intended value and stonkage. Cheap grading will come back, but there won't be a second flood. The junk slabs will finally be swamping the open market, and market forces will drive their price down to the point that people won't want to submit piles of them anymore. PSA won't need to do anything special to deter submissions. The market will take care of it. So you saw a lot of this with people entering the hobby. I had a ton of people asking me, hey, should I submit this, this, and this for grading? My answer is usually no, but also you have to include the caveat that if you don't know what you should be grading, you shouldn't be grading. If you don't want to take the time to look at and even then, if you just got in 2020, it would have been very hard. So you'd have to look at prior market data and know the ins and outs of grading, what value it can add, what's desirable, what's being submit. It's not cut and dry. Yes, you should submit this, this, and this. There's a ton of vintage stuff that got submitted that shouldn't have been either. So whether that's like base unlimited and you're like low grades, probably definitely not worth grading, especially at the increased prices. Tony says Magneton is a based evolution. I guess that would be an unpopular opinion. I don't know if that's I think just by probably no one's ever had that opinion ever. Lousy Cost says there is no worst era. Each has amazing and bad art. Love them all. I agree. I think there's no worst era just because all of it is part of the history. Some of it's better or worse in terms of certain aspects, whether it be the game, whether it be artwork that you prefer, whether it be the Pokemon that you prefer. If you have certain generations of Pokemon that you like more than others, those are probably going to be your favorite. If you grew up with certain sets, or you played during certain sets, or you opened during certain sets, you probably have a soft spot for some of those as well. But I think it's important to recognize the fact all of it's part of the Pokemon history, whether you're the biggest fan of it or not. It's all very important and all makes up the history, which is the last 25 years at least of English. And all of it is important in some way. Final comment here, or final opinion. Fair market value. Collector says fair market value means nothing and people only use the notion of it to benefit themselves. So, man, there's this weird thing where people get too hung up on the fact that someone doesn't want to sell something for a certain price, especially if it's something that's available elsewhere. Don't bother wasting your time. If you and a seller or you and a buyer can't agree on a price, then just move on. Unless it's like a one-of-one item that you'll never see again, there's no reason to waste time on it. So if your definition of fair market value doesn't match theirs and they don't want to sell it for the price that you want to pay, etc., just move on. Especially if it's set cards. There's another one there somewhere. And if you really need it for whatever reason, if it's the only one in existence or it just never comes up, never becomes available, then maybe you have to pay their definition of fair market value. Same with if you're the seller. If you really want the item to sell, you're going to adjust your valuation on it in order to make it sell faster. Either that, or if you don't really care if it sells, then you're entitled to your opinion on how much you want to charge for it. You get a lot of people that are like, can you believe how much so-and-so is charging for something on eBay? Yeah, it doesn't matter. They probably have the price marked up because they don't care if it sells. Their intention isn't to sell it, whether it's an advertisement piece that they have on there just to see like if somebody is really truly interested. Maybe they make an offer on it. Maybe it's not for sale at all. Maybe they just would rather keep it until it hits whatever price is listed. There's tons of reasons, and the key is don't waste your time fighting with people on prices. It's fine. You can get another one in almost every case. I guess one of the other things to mention before I let you guys go, the entitlement with the junk cards, or like not being able to grade the junk cards. You got to remember that if you want to use that kind of logic, where you think only vintage Pokemon cards should be able to be submitted because those are more important. Well, I have bad news for you, because PSA, in the large part, maybe less so now than they used to, or the grading companies in general, the ones that were grading sports cards, your BGS, your PSA, if they wanted to put anything on the back burner, I guess they could just put the entirety of Pokemon or the majority of Pokemon on the back burner, and just do sports cards, because those are kind of their bread and butter. It's in the name. That's what the S stands for in PSA. So keep that in mind. And just be patient. There's a whole lot of just be patient is the theme of this whole Pokemon boom, grading boom, whatever you want to call it, the panty wanny. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you next time. Join the Discord.